out of all my friends, you literally built your brand on gaslighting people. I don't even know if you know when you're doing it. I think it's insane. So maybe,
now you're projecting clearly, right?
No,
is that what you're doing? Is that
no.
the bit we're doing? Your podcast is more successful than ours, and it feels like you're coming on our podcast and saying, I'm sitting here and now twice there's been a joke about how our show is not funny and is boring. I'm like, what is that? Why?
We have a bit of a funny confrontation here. Esther Povitsky and Khalyla getting seriously upset because Rick Glassman made fun of them. I wish I was kidding. Recently, he was on the Trash Tuesday podcast where he made the mistake of having banter with Esther and Khalyla. The phrase punching down was used with a straight face. Again, I'm not kidding. Before we get to the part where Esther and Khalyla confront Rick, it's also fun to see what led up to this special moment. Straight out of the gate, Rick is joking around with these guys with his classic, Rick Glassman sense of humor. I recently covered his appearance on Kill Tony where he trolled Hinchcliffe, who had to pretty much tell him to stop. We know Rick likes to have banter, but with the following clips, you can see Esther getting more and more upset the more Rick makes a joke at her and Khalyla's expense.
All right, let's get this over with, huh? Well, most things I do are as well. Let's get this over with.
Rick, I feel like you're in a bad mood.
Not at all.
Okay.
I don't think so. Look at the pants he's wearing. Festive.
But sometimes you
hilarious.
overcompensate when you're in a bad mood with your
So you must always be in
outfits.
a good mood.
for Brent Morin.
Give it up. Did we
Prayer
do this
hands
on
in it.
podcasts? Like it's a live show?
Yeah.
And then there's Rick. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Let's get this over with.
That's the 8th time you've said it. Is that your new half
he's got
Jewish, half
moves.
regular?
What?
Is that your new half Jewish, your new opener?
I don't know, man. Let's get this over with,
Yeah, what's wrong with you today?
I don't think anything. Really, I don't think anything. But who's able to set boundaries?
Yeah. And I got that,
Has there ever been a situation where she's been
Jesus Christ. Just make sure you get the camera switches right in post.
Yes, I have a selective thing with being grossed out by people, and you're on the list.
Okay, well, I'm glad I made the list.
Well,
Oh, fuck.
have I
Don't sneak
really
up on me like that.
have I really gone downhill? Is my face a jump scare these days?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's not the joke I was trying
What's
to
the
make.
joke?
If you've seen Rick on different podcast appearances, this is what he does. He pokes fun at everything and everyone in the room. But this podcast doesn't seem like the right atmosphere for his jokes. They clearly like having serious, genuine conversation without poking fun at each other.
No, that was his real ex, who I'm actually friends with now, which is a little bit weird to say, but we're really good friends.
Do you guys want to start doing some jokes or something?
Yeah.
The fuck
Go
is
ahead.
this?
Rick is obviously picking the worst possible time to say something like that, which is, of course, part of the joke, right? But to Esther, he's just being rude. She's a comedian, so you'd think she'd understand that he's just trying to be funny. She then tries to push the conversation in a more serious direction, which didn't go too well because Rick spoiled that with another joke.
What's an example for
The
adult
easiest one, where this became conscious that I was using this as a tool is.
Rick? Where's the jokes?
You said you guys didn't want them.
You said you did want them.
I did, but you guys like what your podcast has become.
Okay, so gaslighting, I just looked it up on the screen, and it's manipulating someone into doubting their own reality.
Oh.
I do feel
Hannibal Lecter.
that that's what you do to me.
I know you do.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of projecting, and I've said this to you before, out of all my friends, you literally built your brand on gaslighting people. I don't even know if you know when you're doing it. I think it's insane. So maybe,
now you're projecting clearly, right?
No,
Is that
if-
what
if
you're
I-
doing? Is that the
no.
bit we're doing?
I think he's doing meta gaslighting to you.
Because I'm just specific example.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of the episode, I was like, what's wrong? I feel like you're in a bad mood. And you told me no, you're not.
I'm not.
But you had said multiple times you wanted to get it over with.
Yeah, I was just making a joke. I say that on my podcast when I start all the time. All right,
Okay.
let's get this over with. Just a
Okay.
little joke.
Well, that was my reality. And then now it's cleared up.
Good.
Wow.
Okay.
It's interesting that Esther says that he's gaslighting her when you could make the argument that it's the other way around. She uses the example of Rick saying, let's get it over with, which was obviously a joke. I can't believe that we're even talking about it. But now you can see that it's going from playful banter to a little passive aggressive. Esther is just not taking any of Rick's jokes well at all. Now, when insecurities are involved, that's what can turn this from being harmless banter to feeling like they're being bullied, which is pretty much what they complained about in this next clip. So with 30 minutes in, Esther has become visibly annoyed with Rick, and she reaches her breaking point when Rick jokes that their show is boring.
Seeing the bigger picture. Like, hey, listen, you're really focused on this one episode being boring, but look at all of your boring episodes.
But
this is just what the show is.
Okay,
but
let
if
me
I'm
check in
looking
with
at a
you.
tree with an owl in a forest, I'm going to look at that tree because of the owl.
Let me
Esther,
check in
I
with
want to hold
you.
space for Esther.
How do you feel when he does that? Oh, your show is not funny anymore. It's boring all the time. Where does that land with you?
I don't know. It's mean. It's mean, and it doesn't make me feel good. But then I have trouble telling you that because I feel like you'll just say something meaner back.
Yes! 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 I feel like
And-
you can say that, but if I said that, I would just get pounded and pummeled even further.
Because I'm not as quick as
I
you.
was trying to stay quiet, but I can't.
I think that's
Oh my God.
Here's where I have trouble in life a lot. And I hope you'll give me like maybe 30 seconds to finish this thought without saying like, wrap it up or let's get it over with. I think that I love you so deeply, but you're so brilliant and you're so quick. It's sometimes hard to contend with that and tell you how I truly feel because I feel like you're just going to trample it because you're smarter than me, you're quicker than me, and your brain is connected to your mouth and therefore you're able to get your thoughts much quicker. Versus me, it takes time to process. So I'll leave here feeling like, gosh, why did Rick say that so many times about our show? And probably never say it to you because I have trouble contending with fast speakers. Does that make sense?
Wow.
And
But then,
I'll
also on the same note, I truly, truly love you. But
Yeah,
also,
it's confusing.
It is mean.
And I would also like to add, like, it's honestly really, and I'm sorry, like, I wanted to wait and, like, say cut or whatever, but, like, I feel like it was really hard just now when we were starting and you said that I said I didn't want to have Brent on without you because it wouldn't do good numbers. Like, I don't remember saying that. I might have. I say
no,
that
you
sometimes.
didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh.
You did. She didn't. She never said that.
I
But
never
that
thought
was-
he did.
But that was so, like, mean. And I felt like it was mean to Brent, but it was coming from me in that way that you packaged it. And then he said something bad about himself, like, yeah, I get it. And I'm just, like, sitting here thinking, like, oh, my God, does Brent think that I said that? And, like, I'm an
Aw.
asshole. And I'm, like, thrown off by it. And it was just,
Yeah.
but then I know if I say something, then you'll be like, I was just joking. And then I'm like, okay, well, should I not have said anything? I don't know.
So let's start with Khalyla. Her whole thing seems to be that Rick is too quick on his feet and I guess smarter than her, and because of that, she's not able to participate in the banter, so therefore instead of laughing it off, she becomes a victim and calls him mean. With Esther, she describes a joke Rick makes at the expense of his friend. She also doesn't know how to respond. She even says, I know you're likely going to say you're joking. So I guess you really can't have banter with these guys, which makes it kind of ironic that they would get upset about Rick calling their show boring. Brent says he knew Rick was joking. Esther could have just leaned into the joke or just turned the joke back onto Rick instead of taking it seriously. Moving on, Rick of course apologizes, but eventually questions the type of relationship he has with Esther.
I think it's maybe just certain subject matter, or it just, yeah. It
I don't know
feels-
what those subject matters are because we've had this with when we did Rick and Esther. Like there are times where it's just boom, 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 and then there's times where your feelings would get hurt, and I'm like, which is valid. I just like, I don't know if what the rules are apparently.
I think it's not that there are rules. It's just that when I'm sitting here and now twice there's been a joke about how our show is not funny and is boring. I'm like, what is that? Why?
Okay, well, I am feeling a little defensive right now.
Okay.
Because you say things, and I can't think of a specific example like that.
That's okay.
But you say things like that to me all the time. You'll snore while I'm talking. You're saying I'm boring. When we're on my podcast and I'm doing some of my silly animations, you're like, this is stupid. Why would you do that? And like you make fun of that stuff. And I believe both that you respect me and that you might not like those jokes or those
Right.
those things. And there's truth and there's silliness, and like we're different. I am able to receive things in a certain way, not for better or for worse, differently than you. And it's easy to get confused of like, oh, I could take this, so she can, when that's not necessarily the case. But I will say the rules are not something that I came into our relationship with, rather something that we calibrated together. And there are times where the same thing the next time bothers you. Even you said, oh, well, Rick, I made this decision that sometimes people gross me out and you're on the list, or however you said it. And it's like, it's just, we're self-deprecating. We make jokes about each other, about other people. Now, there are some people you can't do that with.
Do that live on TV.
It is a little confusing with you because you do it all the time. And
I do what all the time?
punch and make fun.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that I punch all the time.
Okay, well,
But
to me, I receive it that way, and I
back.
like it.
Punching back.
Look, I agree. I like it. I like when you punch at me. It's fun.
So I don't know when. So what I've just learned is there's a sensitivity to maybe talking about the show as a whole. Check.
To be honest, it feels like punching down, right? Because your podcast is more successful than ours, and it feels like you're coming on our podcast and saying and I know you said you don't know our numbers, but the last time we had a phone call, we were talking numbers. Maybe you don't remember. I don't expect you to remember everything we say to each other, but I was telling you our numbers and compared to yours, and they are much lower. That you might not be viewing it that way. That's the way I'm receiving it. Is it feels like punching down. I'm not saying that you're on purpose punching down.
Well, I am sorry.
Esther has to be the first comedian to complain about another comedian making fun of them and seriously call it punching down. Esther said that Rick likes to gaslight her, when she seems to pretend like Rick is just bullying her and that it's completely one-sided banter. I checked out the beginning of Esther's last appearance on Rick's podcast, and they're throwing jabs at each other the whole time.
It's just you and me.
Yeah. And how was Pilates really? Are you Esther? I take creatine. I take collagen protein, 5 milligrams of creatine. Very little.
I'm bored.
Like sometimes I just could fall asleep, but if I can't, I usually pull up to your stand-up or something.
So in Esther's perfect world, she can make fun of Rick's podcast or comedy style and call him boring, but if he does anything like that in reverse, it's bullying and, in her words, punching down. You have to give props to Rick for keeping his cool when she said that. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It might be hard to believe, but these guys used to have a podcast together, and although I'm not sure why it stopped, I'm sure we're all not surprised.
If it was all stage crowd work stuff, not stuff I've been working on, like not wanting to show, it would be fun if we just cut to our sets.
Oh yeah, from last night. Well, why couldn't we cut to like a silent,
So just your set? I'm talking about you, not the audience. The audience was loving how quiet you were.
It's so funny how you always have to like make fun of that's your crutch on the show, is like jokes that I'm not good at comedy.
I didn't say you weren't good. I said you were quiet, not the audience.
Okay.
Implying that the audience enjoyed you.
Okay, because I was quiet though.
Correct.
You said. So
that's a joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was their last episode. Their average views weren't that bad. It was a lot higher than Trash Tuesdays, so she probably should have stuck it out if she could have just got better at taking jokes. With this episode, I think some insecurities played a massive role. Rick obviously sees them as his peers, but not the other way around. I think the insecurities mainly come from the fact that Trash Tuesday is not doing anywhere near the numbers it once was. If you look at when they started, it was like 300,000 to 400,000 views per episode. But now it's more like 40,000 to 50,000 views, and some of them as low as 20,000. When you've gone from that height to now this low, it's gonna sting when someone jokes that your podcast is boring, because evidently that's the conclusion that we would all get from looking at the downward trend of their views. And so this argument might be a boiling point coming from the realization that their podcast isn't doing well, at least compared to what it used to be, which might explain this irrational behavior. Even their own fans seem to agree that Esther was in the wrong. The most popular comments seem to be calling this out. Takeaway from this and the history between Esther and Rick is, with Rick, you know what you're getting. With Esther, you never know. It flips a couple times during the space of an episode, and yet she struggles to understand Rick. Crazy. As usual, I'm curious to see what you guys think. Was Rick punching down and being mean? Maybe I missed something. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.